Ahmed Adam, cineasta y fotógrafo de la Academia Asiática de Cine y Televisión de Delhi, experto en montaje, iluminación y dirección de proyectos de cine y televisión, documentalista de ficción, cofundador y editor de la revista The Territory in Between, dinamizador del arte y la cultura en comunidades aborígenes de Australia Central y ganador de diversos reconocimientos internacionales por su mediación, plantea cómo, ante el cúmulo de circunstancias económicas, políticas y sociales que promueve la liberación de capital, el trabajo de subordinación de la tierra y la hegemonía cultural ejercida por los países industrializados, reaparecen las cosmogonías como fuente estética, mística y política, aquello que da vida social, en el sentido de que proporcionan modelos a la conducta humana y confieren significación y valor a la existencia. El pensamiento mítico moldea la realidad y las maneras como se manejan al interior de una comunidad el asombro, la pertenencia, la incertidumbre, el conflicto, la resiliencia, la libertad y la transformación, entre otras incógnitas humanas. Como saberes milenarios, las cosmogonías comprometen la subjetivación y la ampliación de la conciencia, el pensar sensible, la honestidad creativa, la voluntad de ser agente deliberado en las dinámicas de creación social y la sinergia intersubjetiva. Todos estos como puntos de partida para un reconocimiento descolonizador.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people, the traditional owners and custodian of this land we call Australia, and I pay my respect to their cultures and their elders, past and present. Living the impossible, resilience, cultural autonomy, and the legacy of systemic oppression among Aboriginal communities through the lens of chaos, territory, and art. My fascination with Aboriginal culture began when I came across the work of the artist Emily Kamanwara. Her journey into art began in her 70s, and within only 8 years, she had crafted an extraordinary collection, deeply rooted in the history, narrative, geography, flora, and soul of her homeland. When I first learned about Emily, I found it almost unbelievable. I once heard a story from a friend who witnessed Emily painting. He asked her about the meaning of her artwork, and she replied, "I'm painting the smell of the earth after the rain." Emily was, in essence, doing what all great artists do, capturing the uncapturable. Emily's work broadened my perspective to encompass the entire indigenous community in Central Australia, who, against all odds, have been living the impossible. Their ability to preserve and practice their culture despite political violence and disruption present a profound lesson in human resilience and cultural autonomy. Drawing from over a decade of immersive experience among these communities, this presentation will shed light on the strengths of Aboriginal culture as it defies the constraints imposed by the state and the enduring legacy of systemic white supremacy. In this exploration, we will employ Elizabeth Bruce's book, Chaos, Territory, and Art, as a theoretical lens to analyze the complicated relationship between Aboriginal painting culture and the concept of territory. Furthermore, we will integrate the insight of Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari on capitalism to understand how this oppressive system has affected Aboriginal communities and their journey of living the impossible. For the past 12 years, as an African filmmaker, living among Aboriginal communities in Central Australia, I have had the privilege of documenting the lives and stories of some Aboriginal artists. Central to this narrative is the act of living the impossible. In a region where the harsh environment mirrors the challenges faced by its inhabitants, Aboriginal communities have managed not only to survive, but to thrive. At the core of this resilience is their unwavering commitment to preserving and practicing their culture, a culture that has endured centuries of systemic oppression. Aboriginal culture is sophisticatedly tied to the land, tradition, and ceremonies that have been passed down through generations. Despite attempts to displace and erase these traditions, Aboriginal people have held onto their cultural practices, ensuring their survival. The invasion of Australia by white settlers marked the beginning of a system of white supremacy that sought to erase Aboriginal culture and identity. From the declaration of Australia as terra nullius, like land belonging to no one, to the classification of Aboriginal people as flora and fauna, systemic dehumanization and marginalization were deeply rooted. The historical and ongoing injustices faced by Aboriginal communities at the hand of the state are well documented, from forced removals of children from their parents to discriminatory policies. This violence has tested the limits of human endurance. Yet, Aboriginal communities have not only endured, but have also used their cultural strengths as a form of resistance against systemic oppression. The historic 1967 referendum marked a turning point in Australian history. It was a momentous occasion when Aboriginal people were finally counted among the population of Australia, spelling the flora and fauna classification. While this was a significant step towards recognition, the legacy of systemic oppression continued to cast a long shadow. To 2023, the 2023 Australian Indigenous Voice referendum will be held on 14th October. Voters will be asked to approve an alteration to the Australian Constitution that would prescribe a body called the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice that may make representation to the Parliament and the executive government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to mark laws with respect to matters relating to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice, including its composition, function, power, and procedures. Aboriginal painting and territory, a chaotic narrative of resilience. Drawn from Elizabeth Gru's, I suggest we explore Aboriginal painting as a dynamic and chaotic response to the constraints of systemic oppression and the reclamation of territory. Not only in the physical sense, but also in the cultural and symbolic sense. In her book, Chaos, Territory and Art, Elizabeth Bruce presents an ontology of art, examining its various forms of emergence as a territorializing force. Deleuze and Guattari viewed capitalism as a complex, rhizomatic system that deterritorializes and re-territorializes constantly, seeking new markets and new source of profit. In this process, capitalism disrupts traditional ways of life, commodifies culture, and perpetuates inequality. Their concept of schizophrenia represents the fragmentation and dislocation experienced by individuals and communities under the influence of capitalism. Gru's perspective defines art as an art of existence, extending beyond a narrow view of art as a practice centered on taste, cultural achievements, or social reflection. Instead, she portrays art as at its most provocative, and extraction from the universe and an intricate elaboration upon it. The Nura canvas, too, is a prime example of the relation between territory and art. This canvas is one of the largest and most spectacular Aboriginal Western Desert painting. It was painted over 10 days by 50 senior traditional owners of the Great Sandy Desert of northern Western Australia. As an emotionally and politically charged expression of their links to their country, for presenting to the National Native Title Tribunal in 1997. The canvas mapped all the living water to sacred waters, holes, and soaks across the regions of the claim. Christine Anka, professor, argued that the painting works in 3 ways: as proof of laws about country required under the criteria for native title law, as establishing the credibility of the climate truth, and as a map. Nilbert Spider Snail, an Aboriginal elder, danced Kortal, which is called Snake Dreaming, on the Nora canvas in Canberra Court in 1997 to remind those sitting on the High Court of the depths of his people's claim. Christian argues that the painting makes a claim to credibility that confront conventional legal understanding of truth because it operates aesthetically. Lastly, treat the painting as a map entails a challenge to the European valuation of land, the way it's thought and depicted, where maps have historically colluded with property law in order to communicate a particular mode of entitlement. The canvas insists on disrupting the universality of this vision. In all three instances, there is a strong normative aspect to the canvas which is missed in a conventional reading of it as something purely factual, purely aesthetics, or purely cartographic. The narrative of Aboriginal resilience challenges the traditional education system. It invites us to think beyond known limits and to recognize that the impossible is simply a creative path to the possible. Aboriginal education, rooted in cultural practices and artistic expressions, offers valuable insight into alternative forms of learning and knowledge transmission, free from the constraints of systemic oppression. The story of Aboriginal communities in Central Australia serves as an inspirational example of living the impossible in the face of systemic white supremacy and capitalist oppression. Their resilience, cultural autonomy, and commitment to preserving their heritage are powerful narratives that demand attention. By learning from their journey, we gain not only a deeper understanding of human resilience, but also uncover alternative models of education and cultural preservation, free from the chains of oppression. The artistry of Aboriginal painting stands as a vivid reminder that cultural resilience and creativity can win over adversity, reshaping territories and narratives in the process, even within the chaos of contemporary capitalism. Thank you.
Fotografía y cine documental aborigen son técnica, comunicación, realidad y arte. Un certificado de presencia que refleja complejidades y ambigüedades de una sociedad. Retratan, construyen, aumentan y conmemoran la vida como acontecimiento. Independientemente del carácter probatorio o artístico, de belleza o de extrañeza que represente una imagen, la fuerza de afectación que tiene ésta, dice Susan Sontag, depende del contexto político desde donde se mire al otro y a lo otro, bien sea como diferencia, como especificidad, como distinción o como amenaza. El efecto escandaloso de una foto o de un documental nativo es que denuncia que lo que vemos ha sido, y a través de esta constatación, lo que vemos resucita en nosotros, algo así como la definición de fotografía que nos revela metafóricamente a través de la luz a un otro que nos asombra.